Hello, everyone, and welcome to the TweetCap. As always, I'm your host, Ryan, and with me, my co-host, Matt. Matt, how you doing?
I'm excellent today. Good to see you, Ryan. How are you?
I'm good. Like I said, long day. We talked about this before we started, but it's over, so that's always good.
Most
Um,
important.
Definitely, hopefully, we're going to have a lighter episode this week. Not that there hasn't been heavy news, but we covered all of that last time. That was a heavy episode. I don't know if you – I still haven't recovered from last week's episode fully and everything that we talked about. But time passes on, and so too must the TweetCap. Do you have anything you want to say before we get started?
I'm ready to transition into something more light compared to last week. Besides that, things are getting better one way or the other.
Yep.
I really believe that. But
exactly.
That's all I have to say.
All righty. Well, speaking of light, we're going to start off with a light topic, and that's cannibalism. Oh, God. The world is a scary, scary place, Matt. So I'm just going to run through this. I know you've heard about it. You've been messaging me since this story broke, and we are hardly the first people to talk about it on Twitter or otherwise. Oh, go ahead.
Before we go into this story, it's funny. I didn't really expect it to grow this much. I thought the story was like, oh, that little tidbit. But then I realized, wow, this is actually more serious. Should be taken way more seriously than I thought.
Well, we don't know that yet. So let's run through the story, and then we'll get into it. So, famous actor from various movies. I believe obviously he's most known for being the Winklevoss twins in The Social Network, but he's been in a lot of movies since then.
Call Me by Your Name and Lone Ranger 2. And
yeah, but so Armie Hammer, he is a cannibal, allegedly. And it was basically leaked some screenshots from his conversations with fans, female fans. And I'm sure most celebrities, famous athletes, etc., get involved with some of their female fans or male fans, if they're a female, or whatever their preference is. But Armie, he took it a step further in this in the midst of flirting and doing what I'm sure most celebrities do with their preferred fans. He mentioned he wanted to eat them. And then he got into real details. He wanted to, I believe he wanted to eat their heart and have sex with their brain. So,
yep, allegedly. Well, no, actually,
that's the screenshot.
That's the screenshot.
I guess we don't know that they're from him, but I didn't make that up. That was a quote from
exactly.
someone.
That's what I meant.
And as the story kind of grew, it became, super obvious. You would think that Armie Hammer or his team or someone, God, anyone, would come out and be like, for anyone who's interested, I'm not a cannibal. It's been almost a week now, and that has not happened yet. Actually, almost the exact opposite has happened. He basically said, I'm not going to talk about this, and then dropped out of a movie. He was going to go film a movie in the Dominican Republic. He says he's no longer planning on doing that because it wouldn't be smart to stay away from his family for the next 7 months, which very sketchy.
Or that's what he wants us to say.
Right. That's not how you respond to being called a cannibal publicly. And then just today, an ex was like, oh, yeah, definitely into cannibalism. He talked about barbecuing me. Again, there's another quote, all the time.
Did she hold that in?
Well, I mean, I guess that's part of it. Like, I don't know if someone was like, I want to eat you, and they weren't meaning it in like a cute way. But is there a cute way to say I want to eat you? I guess there is, right? Like, you're a snack. I'm gonna eat you up.
Yeah,
that's cute, right? But not I'm gonna barbecue you, eat your heart, and defile your brain. Yeah, you'd think she would have said something, right? You'd think it would have come out a little sooner that the Lone Ranger liked to eat people. But
what a quote.
It hasn't come out until now. So, I mean, I know how I feel, but we'll start with you. What is this story like? can you even comprehend if like this has to be fake, right? Because if it's real, I mean,
I think it's I think with the not straight denial and
that was
is
bad.
a sign. Allegedly, like there's one girl. I think there actually have been a second girl who mentioned he
There's
was
been a few.
some weird tendencies. So I don't know. You know what they say? If it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's
It's
not a
probably a
horse.
cannibal. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a weird. I was talking to another friend about this, another fellow movie buff, and like there's weird fetishes in this world, and that's a weird group of people to
Well,
be into
so
that. So I think he could be oddly into that, and I think he's going to lose his career over this. Honestly, who wants to work
well,
with a
so
cannibal?
hold on. I mean, cannibal beyond losing your career. If he ate another person,
Yeah,
that
that's
means that's not allowed. uh, that's not okay, and it's not allowed. It's illegal.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I mean,
What are the
what
cannibal
if
laws?
you find them and if you don't kill them, is it still illegal? I think it's still illegal, even if you didn't kill the person.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that just eating the person, even if you didn't have anything to do with how they died, is illegal.
does Rocky, the legal analyst for
Well,
for
we will
the
ask.
TweetCap,
We will
does he
ask the
have any
tweet.
laws? Does he
we
know
will
any
ask
laws on that? The
we'll
legal
ask the
expert.
TweetCap's legal expert for comment next week. Superfan Rocky, but God, I'm gonna for the rest of this conversation, we'll assume I'm right in saying it's illegal
To eat people.
to eat people. So he has a lot more to worry about than his career. He
Yeah,
has his actual freedom to consider. But
right.
let's say he didn't eat anybody. Let's say he just likes talking about cannibalism. And again, it's weird.
So weird.
That's weird for me, but I'm not here to shame how anybody else consensually enjoys themselves. Obviously, the fact that they're leaked means maybe the consent wasn't as clear as maybe it could be to have that kind of conversation. But does that change anything? If it turns out that no, I don't eat people, I've never eaten people, but talking about it and using that language in the bedroom is definitely a thing that he's into. Does that
Yeah.
change what you think? Like, is he fine then? Is it like, oh, okay, as long as he doesn't eat people. Like, I'm just curious. Like, what happens? Let's say he does come out and finally say, guys, this has gone on long enough. I don't eat people. You know?
You have to be very patient and wait for people to forget about it. But
You
no,
think it still hurts him?
I do think reputation wise, yeah, especially with how delicate people's um attitudes towards any celebrity. And is this a weird extreme example of cancel culture? Can you canceling people who eat people? I mean, I
Well,
guess.
remember, if he eats people, he should be canceled. I'm gonna go brave stance here on the tweet cap. I'm pro canceling cannibals.
Me too.
But if he's not a cannibal, if he just likes to pretend that he's a cannibal, I mean, isn't there a world where like he just becomes like the new star of Tim Burton movies or something? You know,
Yeah,
like
he would have to go to
where
very niche places
yeah, he
to get
starts
taken
playing the
seriously.
creepy guy. Like, couldn't they do a Hannibal Lecter, like a Silence of the Lambs remake, and be like, hey, it'd be
That'd be
really
some funny
funny.
casting.
Let's cast Army Hammer. Like, couldn't he kind of flip it and like it maybe wouldn't be exactly what he wants. He can't be the Lone Ranger ever again, obviously, but he could be, like this weird, creepy guy, like like what Johnny Depp was doing before we canceled him for getting beat by his wife.
Mm.
Um, like I know, hot take. We kind of glazed past that, and I don't know the full story there. Maybe he lost his career for a different reason, but it was very weird timing that he came out as a victim of abuse and then lost his entire career. But anyway, we'll talk about that in another episode.
Right.
I'm just saying, couldn't he kind of take on like a niche kind of like that, like Johnny Depp, who I mean, he played a bunch of characters, but most of them were just like Johnny Depp. With the exception of maybe Captain Jack Sparrow, and even he was still very much like all the rest of Johnny Depp's characters. Could Army Hammer kind of like spin it into being like a horror guy or like a thriller guy or like being the creepy, like 50 Shades of Grey creepy kind of guy? Because
I
I
don't
mean, he's
think
an
so.
attractive dude. He's like 6'2". I
I
mean,
saw him at Sirius XM once. I saw him. I actually saw him.
he's very
He's
big.
really
He's
tall.
muscular. Like he's not a like he looks like a movie star. He just so
When I
like
walked
a
by
Ted
him at
Bundy esque.
when I walked by him at Sirius, I said, "Oh, hey, look, there's Army Hammer. He's really tall." I was doing whatever. That's what my thought. It was just 2 seconds. He was taking a picture next to Henry Cavill, who was
Also
significantly
tall.
shorter. I mean, yeah, he's tall. I think Army Hammer is actually more like 6'4", 6'5".
Wow. All right. So it's perfect. Like you
And
can't.
he was taller than Superman. It's like if this was a movie, he could have beat him. He could play Bizarro or something.
Yeah, but I'm saying like they can't flip it and be
He's
like,
six
yes,
five,
he's
by the way.
creepy. Oh, okay. 6'5". I feel like
He once fucked a peach in a movie.
well, no, Timothy Chalamet did that. He ate a peach.
Oh yeah. Forgot the
Yes,
how that worked.
got to get it right. He ate the peach after Timothy Chalamet was
Did you
done with
know
it.
he's the great grandson of an oil tycoon named Armand Hammer?
I mean, did I
Did you
know that? No, but if I looked at him, which I have a lot last week, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. He looks like the kid of an oil tycoon. Speaking of, I'm watching a TV show, one of the Shondaland's greatest hits, Scandal. It was on ABC, and I just found out the actor who plays the president in that show.
Yeah,
Two things. One, obviously, comes from a famous family, which is funny because so does the character. And two, he's the voice of Tarzan, like
Armie
the
Hammer.
cartoon. No, Tony
Oh,
Goldwyn. But very
oh,
similar. They're both tall guys. They both got famous families with a lot of money, and they're both actors. Only one that we know of is an alleged cannibal, but Tony Goldwyn, we got our eye on you. So, but I don't know. I feel like he could switch this. I think he could turn this around. I think if he comes out and he just says, I'm into cannibalism, but not into practicing cannibalism, and then he just goes ahead and accepts that he's not going to get to play like, the oil tycoon anymore. He's going to have to play the creepy guy, and I think it'll be fine. I think again, we make Ted Bundy movies every 4 years. He's obviously first in line to be Ted Bundy next time. My opinion.
I think it's a hard.
As long as he doesn't eat people. Again, if he ate people, then he's screwed. He should just stay quiet and not say another word ever again, and just hope to God this blows over without us finding out that he actually consumed a human being or any part of a human being. But if he didn't actually eat anybody, I feel like he could get away with this. You know what I mean? Not a good look, but I feel like he can get past this if he didn't eat people.
I think it'd be a hard sell for him to ever find roles again. Just be
Really?
too niche. He'd have to leave the Hollywood system or go to another country. Honestly, I think if he
You
wanted to
really
act
think
again
there's
that.
people who wouldn't want to see a cannibal?
Yeah, I do. I think there's so many other leading men looking like to cast
Well,
instead.
right. He can't be a
He'd
leading man.
I just think that I think his career is done after this. Even if with just knowing how these trends go, I think it's over for him. To be
I don't know.
honest.
Well, I mean, we'll have to see. We'll have to keep, keep our eye out on how it develops. Like I said, obviously, if he ate somebody, he's got way bigger problems than never being a leading man ever again. But I mean, there's a lot of characters in movies. They're not all the leading man, you know. So I don't know if he's done working. Maybe he could do like the host of the Twilight Zone or something creepy. I don't know, something
Yeah, I
creepy.
think Hollywood's going to be staying away from him for a while. Maybe in due time, but
True. I mean, certainly
then
not right now. Right now,
yeah,
he's got to figure out what he's gonna say.
right.
So far, all he said is, "Stop asking me if I'm a cannibal," which is not a good answer when someone says, "Are you a cannibal?"
Right.
You should really go with no. And if you can't go with no, you should really have a good explanation for why you can't say no.
For sure.
But saying, "Please stop asking," it's please stop asking. You're being rude. That might be true. They are being rude, but you still haven't answered the question. So,
Interesting
we'll
times ahead
definitely
for the cannibal.
for the cannibal. Oh wow, you're already calling him the cannibal. You believe
Okay.
he's
To be
guilty
fair, I think he's guilty?
of
I don't know.
cannibalism
Maybe
too.
I don't know. Big if I need
If
some more
true.
time, but I do think I'm leaning towards maybe. I am.
Yeah, it's
With the amount of people who said that he's into that, who the not outright denying, leaving movie sets. I think he has a rough start. He's having a rough start too.
Yeah, no, he definitely. It's not out of the realm of possibility, and so that's probably not, probably not a good thing for that to even be an option. It's probably not a good thing for him.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you go ahead if you wanted to bring into the next story while I get my next story all keyed up.
Okay, so it's funny how things come up in the sports world. It's been an interesting time for these last few days. I mean, it's really two stories into one almost, but
Mm-hmm.
to break it down is in the NBA. I mean, which angle do I take on this one? Because I'll start with this. So, probably one of the biggest trades in New York sports history ever, if you're really looking back. Brooklyn Nets acquired James Harden in a major three-team blockbuster trade, and and the former, and we have a MVP, a former MVP, 8-time All-Star, 6 All-NBA first team. James Harden is going to Brooklyn officially. Though there were rumblings at the beginning of the year that this was possible, that this was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
James Harden really wanted to make clear that he did not want to stay in Houston. He showed up overweight, talking down on his team and teammates, saying there's no hope for the Houston team. And after that, there's the major trade. So as then James Harden goes to the Nets, he's the only one in this trade. The Brooklyn Nets essentially gave up their entire future. And ironically, we have Sean Marks, who promoted to have a special culture from within. And building from the team up, he essentially took that all away to trade Harden. And with that trade, they gave up Karis LeVert, who was the very best player on the Nets in the bubble. He went to Houston, then Houston traded him to the Pacers, and so he's going to the Pacers now. Jared Allen, major center, up and coming. Some people saying probably one of the few actually major centers in the NBA, traded to the Cavs, and Taurean Prince was another big bench player. While the Rockets get Victor Oladipo, Rodney Cruz, Dante Exum, and four picks, first-round picks. 3 of them, the Brooklyn Nets are giving away 3 of their first-round picks, and they have 4 unprotected first-round pick swaps. So as early as this year, Houston, if they want, they can swap the picks with them if they are in a worse position. So the Nets give up their entire future for James Harden, and it's finals or bust. And what led to this, allegedly, and probably one of the major factors in caving in this, was the fact that another major star for Brooklyn Nets, Kyrie Irving, last week left the team for personal reasons. And in that time, Kyrie was caught partying was caught at a party for his sister and dad, partying without a mask, breaking NBA COVID protocols, and they are determining his punishment for that. And while the Nets were playing the Atlanta Hawks on Tuesday night, he is in a big Zoom call with Cynthia Nixon, a political candidate who is running for the Attorney General. Yeah, she's running for Attorney General, right?
Mm-hmm. I think so. She ran for governor last time she ran. But
so, yeah, Kyrie, and so seeing where it is, the Brooklyn Nets, we're not having our major point guard coming in. What are we going to do? They trade everything. They get the new guard, and now the Nets are probably going to be looked at. They're going to be looked at like a shadow. They have to win the NBA Finals because they have no future to establish a team with this. At this moment, and we're talking, Kyrie Irving is not back on the team, but there have been rumblings that he is planning to come back, possibly for Martin Luther King Day, but that story has not been official yet. But I think all Nets faithful, and the Nets have turned into the most hated team in the NBA. Like I said, if this works out, there's so many ways to look at this. You do have 3 MVP, possibly 3 Hall of Famers in their prime on the Nets. And on the contrary, as I said, if this does not work out, they look awful. They don't have any. They literally have to wait until 2028 until they get a first round pick again. So almost an entire decade, and it's only 2021 to go play. So lots to unfold there. This was probably, even though this is probably the biggest trade in all New York sports history, probably one of the biggest trades in the NBA's history. The fact that this trade was really talked down upon. I think today some net fans are coming around like, oh, at this moment we do have three major stars leading the way, but again, there's just so much riding onto this, and I think it also just leads to such a major talk about like, wow, what did James Harden do? He talked bad about his teammates. He didn't give an effort. He gained a lot of weight, and he got exactly what he wanted. What kind of precedent does that show? And, I think it's worth discussing. And, ever since LeBron took his talents to South Beach in 2010, it really started a trend for NBA players to really do what they want. One thing as we talk about this is, Anthony Davis essentially did the same thing to New Orleans a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, same thing, talked bad about the organization, got himself traded, and he won a championship. So I don't know. Is this worth it? Is this the trend we're going? Are NBA teams like backing, or clearly star players have the edge over the executives? Kyrie's been missing. The Nets on off they came out saying they're aware of it, but they did not hold him accountable yet. Where do you think this is all going, Ryan? What do you think this interesting news shows?
Yeah, a few things. First off, for anyone who hasn't caught the dynamic of the TweetCap just yet, Matt is our de facto sports analyst, okay? Me and him keep up pretty well when it comes to pop culture, TV, and movies. I think Matt would even admit that due to my severe obsession with cable news, I maybe have a bit of an edge when it comes to some of the politics talk. Mm-hmm. But Matt, this is your domain. So most of what you just said, I mean, I read the story obviously because you told me you were going to talk about it. Yeah. And obviously it's on Twitter, and so am I. But most of this I'm learning from you. So, couple notes. First of all, why are we fat shaming James Harden? That's my first. That's honest to goodness. I mean, people can take away my sports card all they want, but that is probably the biggest piece of news. Yeah, actually, I like that one. You showed me that one earlier. I really like that one, but that's because I'm a big wrestling fan. Mark Henry, also from Texas. He might even be a Rockets fan, so who knows? He might hate that comparison. But anyway, that was first thing, probably the most important thing I got from that. Not the most. The most important thing is, I mean, when you put it into that perspective, 2028 is the next time they get a first-round pick.
Yeah, an unprotected one. So
even if they do good, even if they get a championship, they'll have to be good for a decade before they can get honest-to-goodness, first, like, top-tier talent, new top-tier talent into their organization.
You want to know another
trading?
You want to know another ironic thing about that? Well, it could be ironic if it goes back. So James Harden and KD become free agents in 2 years. So imagine if this falls over and they decide to bounce. No. So this is a desperation time. This was a desperate move.
It is. And I think, by the way, you said they're the most hated team. I don't have any inside knowledge on this, but just from my own personal knowledge of how people work, they have a stacked team, right? I mean, they should be good. They're not that good, but they should be very good, especially with these three now.
With these three, they could really ride it out, but you really don't have any major.
But even before, they had Kyrie and Kevin Durant, right?
Yeah, that was just good enough to win the East. I think this really assures it, but it just has a huge target on your back.
But they still have never, I feel like the team they built, or the team that they told people they built was just so much better than the team that ended up on the court. And I think that's why people are so mad at them. Not because, I mean, listen, James Harden, the issue is not that they got another star player. The issue is that even with two star players, they still weren't doing what everyone was expecting. They were still failing to hit expectations. So why would adding another major player help? The issue wasn't they didn't have major players. They have two. That's an embarrassment of major players.
We have to wonder how much would this trade have happened if Kyrie didn't go AWOL? And he still still hasn't made a comment as we're recording this podcast. So.
And which brings me to the Kyrie part of all this. Now that I've defended James Harden from the fat shaming internet, I think he just wants to be done. I mean, think about it. That's what this seems like to me. Like I know that rich people, and these are all very rich people. I know that rich people, even if they have like a core set of values that they kind of believe in, they never actually apply it completely to themselves. That's just a fact. So it doesn't surprise me that he, maybe he was like, wear a mask, and then went out maskless. It doesn't surprise me. He's like always be on practice at practice on time. Then he missed a game. Like that doesn't surprise me necessarily. Like that either of those things would happen separately. I'm not saying like he's trying to get fired or anything like that. I could see him doing both of those things.
He gets $30 million a year.
Right. I could see him doing both of those things while still being totally committed to the game and to the team. But to do them both, at the same time, I can see him doing either one and being like, all right, well, whatever. Obviously, he's a rich man. He doesn't need any money anymore. And he's just decided I'm doing this instead. Because you're right. I mean, and frankly, it makes no sense why the executives would have the power. I mean, I don't pay to see the owner of the Nets. I don't pay. Mark Cuban is the only professional basketball executive I can name. Period.
Yeah.
And I'm not a Mavericks fan. That's still the only one I can name. So no one cares about who the executives are. They could sell the team every year to a different person, and most of us who just kind of watch would never care. Except for maybe on your team. I know that some people get into it just for their team, even if they don't care about the rest of the teams. But even still, at most people know 1 to 2 executives in an organization. Most people probably know the head coach of an organization, and then they know the star players. Actually, they probably know the entire team, but definitely the star players. So it makes absolutely perfect sense the star players have all of the bargaining power. But the fact that he missed not one, but like not only did he miss a game, but then he also did this, this party stunt, leads me to believe that he kind of maybe he just wants to take a year off.
And he did while they were playing, like I said, against the Hawks, he was within that Zoom.
That's what I'm saying. Like, maybe he just doesn't want to play this year, which not good for the Nets, by the way. But
especially after this trade, it's funny how much like ESPN and Bleacher Report are pushing big three, but we still don't know where Kyrie's
we're still missing one of the three. No, and I mean, if he's done, he should just tell them he's done.
Yeah,
and it's probably a breach of contract. He'll probably be in some kind of trouble legally, but they'll get out of it. He'll pay what he has to pay.
Yeah, I think if you officially retire, you don't lose the contract.
Well, he has to finish this year. He can't retire midway through the year, I don't think.
He can, yeah. He's actually able to.
Huh.
There was an NFL player who did that. I forgot. I can't think of his name now. He retired in the middle of a game. This Titans. He did. He was really pissed at the team.
Well, I'm done.
Literally in halftime. He swear he left at halftime.
Could you imagine?
But he has to retire, though. He has to say, I'm done.
Is there any like penalty for retiring and then coming back in the year?
Just being judged. Like Brett Favre did that.
Okay. $30 million I got paid. For how many years has he been getting paid $30 million? Judge whoever you want to judge.
Brett Favre retired for a year. Marshawn Lynch came back briefly last year. I mean, it's happened, but Michael Jordan.
He's the one I was thinking. Yeah, he was one I was thinking of.
Few years in between his 2 retirements.
And I even said, like, honestly, if he wants to like travel the world, or he was on that call, maybe he's interested in public office, which would be interesting. Yeah, maybe he says, I want to take a couple years off, but he keeps up the workouts, he keeps up the practicing, and in 2 years he does a Michael Jordan.
I'm sure
just
someone
comes
would
back.
Give him a chance.
Someone will. It'll probably be the Nets because they'll still have no good people because they got rid of all their picks. So the Nets will be like, well, we still need a point guard. We can't draft a new one. I guess we'll take Councilman Irving.
Yeah, they just have to depend on late picks and compensatory picks, and then they have to just go.
Could you imagine if like a sitting city council member also played for the Brooklyn Nets? That'd be awesome.
I don't know. I mean, that's just the thing is you just don't know what he's doing. I'm surprised. He's either Adam. There's so many different rumors. Some say it's a reaction from what happened in the Capitol. Some say it could be mental health. I mean, it's so weird. You just don't know.
Well,
That's
what
the
do
whole
you
story.
mean
He
by
just
mental
listens to that.
health? Do you think he's like sick, or he's just
No, like
taking? He's burnt out.
some people think that he's like battling something because of because he was very emotional. What happened with BLM movement
I mean,
and the
it
sensitivity.
was a
That's
tough
just a
year.
rumor
Yeah.
though. That's not what I think.
No,
I
I
mean,
don't think he's
this is what people
sick.
are saying.
I mean, listen, if he left right now, it'd probably be like for mental health, but not in like the he's sick and needs help kind of way. In the I'm burned out.
Yeah, that could be a thing too.
I'm just taking a break. I'm done for now. And he might again maybe if he is very invested in BLM. Like I wasn't kidding when I said that. By the way, he
right.
was on the Cynthia Nixon Zoom fundraiser. He's again very invested in BLM. If he's also had like a very rough reaction to the Capitol, which frankly both of you and I did, and we did it very publicly last week. It's totally possible he's like I want to focus on my community right now, and I'm going to do that. And if the NBA will have me in some capacity, be it a player in a few years, a coach. I don't know if he has that skill set, but maybe, or some sort of analyst on ESPN or something to that effect. Like, I'm sure the sport will welcome him back, even if he doesn't necessarily make it clear why he's leaving, because he's already had such an impact on the sport. Even, I mean, he's a young guy. He's not old. And like he's had such an impact on the sport that I think no matter what he ends up doing or how he ends up leaving it this time around, he will be able to find his way back to the sport. So if that's where he's at mentally, then he should. I don't know if he should do it right now, middle of the season. Like I feel like he has to be really done. But I mean, I think if he's seriously kind of like burnt out, he should contemplate like I'm going to finish this season for my team. Give this new team, this big three, a shot at some some significant wins, and then I'm gonna retire at the end of the year and move on to full time doing what I've been doing on the side, which is helping his community and being a part of that, traveling, whatever his interests are. I don't know. Like I said, also not a Brooklyn fan, so I know if you're a Brooklyn fan, you're probably tearing your hair out. Like, he can't leave. He's got a contract, but he can leave. And frankly, if he doesn't want to be there, you don't want him there. I wouldn't want him there. If I was the coach or one of the players, and I'm not, I wouldn't be like, we need Kyrie. If Kyrie doesn't want to play, then he doesn't help anybody by being there. He just takes $30 million. I mean, actually, it's a great deal for him. He does nothing and gets paid. And same with like James Harden, where you were talking about his issues. And I don't think he'll have any issues in Brooklyn. I think he wanted to leave, and that's why he started, creating issues. But yeah, if you're in Houston and you're getting all this info about how much James Harden doesn't like you from the media, why would you want James Harden to play with you? I mean,
Yeah,
at that
they
point, I'd be
just
like,
got
whatever,
fed up.
dude, go. Like,
Did you
obviously, you don't want to
see?
be here.
Fun fact:
So
there's this restaurant that was supposed to be named that opens next week. That was named after James Harden.
it's called like Harden's.
Yeah, something like that.
What
So that's
are
not
they
gonna
going to
last
change
for
it
a
to?
year.
They're gonna change it the Rocket, the Rocket Cafe. Boom, done. That one's for free. But anyway, we want to probably move on from the NBA, but be interesting to see what happens this year in the East in particular, with that new potentially big three,
Maybe.
potential big three,
I
or
just,
maybe it'll
but
be a dud, or maybe they won't even have three of them.
just my last question, Ryan.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
As I mentioned, we've seen players who are forcing themselves out for a long time. Like I said, AD and he won the finals. James Harden did exactly what you want. I mean, is this a trend that we should follow or just accept? And not many NBA play. I mean, none virtually aren't really. They're just doing what the players tell them to do. I mean, is this a trend worthwhile? Is it worth discussing? Or
I mean, so
should we tell our
what
kids,
is the
if you don't get your
alternative?
way, if you complain and you're mean to people and you have enough talent to do it, you could get what you want. Just
Well,
make sure you have the
no,
talent.
it's not. It's not a life lesson because it wouldn't work in all. It wouldn't work in all situations. I mean, if they were working as I don't know, let's say they were working in a fire department and they were really good firemen, but they just complain constantly, so they get transferred to a different shift or to a different different firehouse within a city. That wouldn't fly. They get rid of him, and then the union be involved. It'd be a whole thing.
And
They
that's why I
get rid
said
of him.
if you're good enough, do you have the
No,
right to
there's
do it?
no. The reason this works is not because they're talented. I mean, they're talented, but it's because of how much money we're talking about. This is not something that normal people can emulate really with any real success. Like, I'm not worth as much money as James Harden is. That's just a fact. I don't cost as much money as James Harden does. So to think that I could, start playing hardball with my boss, even if I'm good at my job, would be insane. I mean, you could maybe play a little hardball and be like, I disagree, or you could stand up for yourself if you're good at your job, and you obviously should, as they do. But as I'm sure they probably did at the beginning, but obviously that's not going to work. If James Harden says, listen, if he politely says, listen, I really want to go someplace else. My heart's in Brooklyn. I've got these clubs in Brooklyn. I love the Brooklyn lifestyle.
The
I want
strip
to go
club
to Brooklyn.
sequel, he'll make big now.
Well, I don't know. Whatever. I'm not going to criticize the man's free time because that's irrelevant to
No,
me.
I'm saying it's a good
But,
thing. Maybe he helps. Maybe he helps give more love
but
to the
beyond
exotic
that,
dancing
like maybe
industry.
beyond that, maybe he just really likes the city. He could just really like New York City. He's not a Houston fan. He doesn't want to stay in Houston. He doesn't want to
I don't
be
know
in
if
Houston.
KD was on the Toronto Raptors, would he be fighting for that to go there to
Well,
play with them?
and that's the other option. Maybe he's like, I want to be back with Kevin, and we're gonna win a championship. Either way, it doesn't matter what he said to the Astros, Jesus, the Rockets. They're gonna say no. If your best player says, I'd like to go be someone else's best player, your response is no. You never say yes, because then you lose your best player. Like, what are you talking about? Why would you ever even consider that? So this is what you have to do. You have to stop being their best player, and that's what he did. I mean, he was still talent-wise probably their most talented player, but he was their best player, and then he wasn't. So they got rid of him because he was no longer worth keeping around. But you have to make it that way with this much money and like the way this works. So no, I don't think that this is going to be something that you can emulate, and I don't think we have to excoriate James Harden or the Rockets or the Nets for giving a bad example for the children. If your child is worth $30 million and they want to play hardball, go for it. Hot take. If my kid is ever worth $30 million and they're like, I don't know, should I be polite or should I fight for it? I'd be like, fight for it. You're worth $30 million. If you're worth that much money, someone should be paying you that much money, period. That's period. You should have control over yourself if you're really worth that much. And that's what they did. So, I mean, again, is it a good way to live life? No. But is it a good way for basketball players to conduct business, in terms of their best interest? Yeah, absolutely. I do the same thing.
Well, maybe this leads to Uncle Drew 2 for Kyrie as well.
Yeah, well, and like I said, there's nothing you could do about it. You can't stop it. You can't make a rule against being being mean to your teammates. I guess you could fine them if you wanted to, like at a team level, but these people they're fabulously wealthy. They don't need there's no fine you could implement that would be seen as fair that would ever really affect James Harden. He's got that much money. You know what I mean? So, like, it just is what it is. You just got to accept it as part of business and move on, rebuild.
I do. That's going to be interesting. I think we're going to just see this will all be a lot more clear once once Kyrie talks and I'm sure
or returns.
At the end of the day, talks or returns, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. So I saw something very interesting today. I'm framing this differently than what we talked about.
Okay.
Today, good old Jack from Twitter tweeted. It was a chain. And he decided to reference what had happened. And for those of you who don't know, since last we spoke, @RealDonaldTrump is no longer a Twitter account. They have officially removed him from Twitter as well as almost all other social media. Actually, Melissa told me that Pinterest has taken him off. I didn't even know he had a Pinterest. That's hysterical. But anyway, I shouldn't say hysterical. Some people get very, very upset about, freedoms and such. But it is a little funny that the president had a Pinterest. I will say that. But anyway, and so he addressed the, why he did it and why he felt it was right. And I'm not going to get into any of that. We talked a lot about that last week and just previously. And frankly, I said we're going to have a lighter week. But I will say that in this tweet, and it's the very first tweet, he tags at real Donald Trump. The
What
tweet
he
is
said.
actually, let me see if I can grab it. I had a screenshot of it, and I'm not going to read the whole thread because it's long. But like I said, I want to say it ended up being like 6 tweets, which was, a lot. Yeah, so this morning, 22 hours ago, the first tweet is, I do not celebrate or feel pride in our having to ban at real Donald Trump from Twitter.
Okay.
And I'm just laughing because he tagged him.
Shit.
And he's not on Twitter. We know that. The first line is he's banned from Twitter, but we're going to use his Twitter handle. We're going to tag him, which
For
I
one
thought
last
was,
time.
yeah, I thought that was super weird. Like I said, I clicked on it. I was like, maybe you can't see it. He's still verified, by the way. But yeah, I just thought that was the weirdest message the weirdest way to put out that message. I also thought it was weird that he tweeted it, but I guess when you're the CEO of Twitter, I guess you can be forgiven for utilizing Twitter as a professional means of communication. But yeah, it was very funny to see that tweet because it was at real Donald Trump. And when I saw it real quick, I was like, oh, is he back on? I assumed he was back on because why else would you tag somebody unless you
Yeah.
wanted them to see it? But no.
Because like YouTube only, I think, suspended him for like a week.
Yeah, I don't think anyone else has done the ban for life thing.
Well,
Well, Facebook has said he's banned indefinitely, right? So they
oh,
haven't
the Zuck.
specified what that means. So he's banned until the next time having Donald Trump on the platform will be good, and then he'll be unbanned essentially. The next time Mark Zuckerberg needs Republicans to help him do something, he'll unban Donald Trump. That'll be his way around it. But yeah. So obviously we don't have to talk too much about the actual tweet, but we should hit on it. What do you think about the Twitter ban? The actual Twitter ban, or the social media ban, or the whole deal? I mean, we couldn't avoid it. We talked about Twitter, so
I've been, we clearly see that the most extreme people who follow Trump, the most extreme, really, really made a bad name for themselves. And a lot of these people are on the internet. A lot of these people probably have Trump's Twitter. You can save people. You can have people give immediate tweet alerts. A lot of the most extreme Trump fans who are willing to commit heinous acts really get that influence from the internet. And I don't know if ban for life is the way to go, because we could talk about censorship and all that. This is a form of censorship technically, even if I agree that he needed to be tamed in such a manner after what happened to the Capitol. I just think maybe having him banned for life, because you ban for life. What are you going to do now? Maybe I would have done until the term's over, or maybe I've done for a year. I think it's oddly at first I was really happy about it, but it's a little too late at the same time. So,
well, that's true.
I think it's just it's fine for what it is right now, and we'll see where things go and lie. The National Guard no one could go near that inauguration. National Guard is there, having probably one of the most important roles ever, because I think a lot of us are really nervous for inauguration. Are both really excited but nervous that something bad can happen now, because who knows where these people are planning and what's going on. So yeah, I think it's a lesson learned. At now for Trump, it's time to silence him temporarily, but we'll see. I don't know if life's the way to go. I would just have to really, really think about it. But I think some form of censoring him in a private company, I think is actually the way to go. I just don't know for life, but for now, it's time for he had to shut up.
So First of all, I have never, like I said, I never followed at real Donald Trump. I did follow the president's actual account, the POTUS account, which was mostly just retweeting
Trump
him.
was the second person I ever followed on Twitter.
But there you go.
I just because he
It's
was, I didn't
okay.
know he was going to turn into this.
One of the first people I followed was Kevin Spacey, so I corrected that. But I corrected that after I found out who Kevin Spacey was, but or who he really was. But anyway, it was even in my bio. I had Kevin Spacey fan. I loved Kevin Spacey. But that's for another day. I will say this: 88.7 million followers the president has on Twitter.
That's a lot.
So you want to talk about the number of people it would take to overrun the United States Capitol, even with the 20,000 National Guards that extra National Guard members that we've called, which is unprecedented in its own right, and frankly, just incredibly disappointing. It's that number, 88.7 million. Again, I'm not saying everyone who follows the president is, or rather the president's actual account, is going to do something like that. But even a fraction of 88.7 million is a large number of people. So the idea that, he can be allowed to do what he's going to do because there's not that much time left, there's enough time to make 88.7 million people a very dangerous number of people. I will say it's not censorship because Twitter is not the government. Twitter doesn't have the same censorship rules. No one has to have Twitter. Twitter could shut down tomorrow. They could just say, I'm done. Jack Dorsey could say, I've got more money than ever before. No one else has this much money like I do. I don't want Twitter anymore. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to come up with a new idea because I'm still relatively young. And that's that. And there's not a thing anyone could do to stop him. It's private. It's private. It's not private. I think they're probably a publicly traded company, but with the exception of his stockholders and his board and business people, there's nothing that anyone else that John Q. Public could do to stop him. So he's not censored by Twitter. He gave several presidential addresses on television, so that's hardly being censored. And I thought it was funny the crazy QAnon lady from Georgia, whose name I don't remember. I want to say it's Marjorie Green, but I could be very wrong about that, and I'm not going to dignify her by looking her name up. But she was elected to Congress in Georgia, and she was wearing the mask that said censored while she was talking on a microphone on the House floor.
That's not censored.
Which is the exact opposite of being censored because, you're a member of the House of Representatives speaking on television and on the House floor. So you're hardly a oppressed community there. But anyway, it's not oppression. Twitter can do whatever they want. Google can do whatever they want. Frankly, if anything, this should actually unite Democrats and Republicans around the idea that Silicon Valley is way too important to this country, and we can't let them just be responsible for this. Because again, what if Silicon Valley just said we're done? I mean, they won't because they're making fistfuls of money every 2.5 minutes. But if they ever said that, if Twitter or Facebook, especially Facebook, because he owns a bunch of them, Mark Zuckerberg said, "Yeah, I'm leaving the country. I'm leaving the planet. I'm going to get on Elon's rocket. I'm going to go to Mars or whatever the hell they're going to do, and I'm taking all of the internet with me." There's literally nothing we could do to stop him. Nothing. There's absolutely nothing we could do. And we would have nothing to replace it with. So we need to be a little bit more aware of just how important we've decided to make a select, region of California to our daily lives, because we've made that group of people very, very important to how our entire world runs, which is okay. We've done that before. We've never nationalized really any industry. And I'm not saying we should, but just being aware. And then, maybe looking into the idea that, antitrust actually applies to some of these companies.
Yep.
If Twitter could destroy social media by simply ceasing to exist, then that's probably not good. That probably means Twitter's too big. Facebook, if Google is the only way we get any information anymore, that means Google's probably too big. And again, there's different ways you can handle that, different ways you should address that. But I just hate when they say it's censorship. It's not censorship. That guy, the senator, said it was censorship because they didn't publish his book. It's not censorship. Otherwise, everybody would have a book deal.
You
Like,
can
what do
do
you mean?
self-publishing now with Amazon.
Write a blog about the tyranny of the internet or whatever the hell he was going to write about.
Interesting.
But yeah, like it's not censorship just because you didn't get what you want. Just like it's not fraud because you didn't get what you want. This is a common theme, actually. When you really sit down and think about it, it's something because I didn't get what I want. It's fraud. It's censorship. It's illegal. It's socialism because I didn't get what I want. You know what I mean? Like, not, when you really sit and think about it, you can distill the entirety of the last 4 years in the way certain people, certain populations have seen it by that exact quote. It's not insert whatever they just said just because you didn't get what you want.
You
And
get what you get, and you don't get upset.
well, exactly. I will say though, Parlor got royally screwed over.
Maybe some people just wanted to go on that for fun, and now
I know someone who went on there for fun. I'm not going to
yeah.
say their name because while I do believe they just went on for fun, if I ever said the name, they would be absolutely ostracized for the rest of their life if anybody important ever heard it. But yeah, they went on for fun, and they're like, all right, well, I guess that's over. It was literally a week. They were just like, I want to see what this is about. And then a week later, it was used in a violent attack, and so it got shut down. But it didn't even get shut. It did get shut down because after everyone else pulled, apparently, like their web provider pulled, all of their legal team, like the lawyers they had on like retainer, they all backed out of their contract. Like literally, the entire company dissolved in a week.
Wow.
I think they're trying to get back on. They're trying to find some people, and I think they have something in the works. But
Bring back
and I've never heard of this.
Bring
Gab.
back MySpace.
Bring back MySpace. Yeah, I've never heard of Gab. Apparently, that's the one now that the alt-right is using to talk to one another. So I guess it does still exist now that all of the big ones have really cracked down on it and Parler disintegrated. But it's so weird. Like, why did Parler get like specifically? That's the only group of people who, if they really wanted to make a thing, be like, come on. Obviously, people use Twitter to help organize this, and obviously, people use Facebook to help organize this. There's no way everyone just logged on to Parler and did this, and every other social media site was completely clean. Now, I get other social media sites started deleting stuff, and Parler was less inclined to do that. They were willing to talk about new rules, but they weren't willing to ban or delete anything that was already up. But still, like, there's no way you can convince me that Parler is the only social media app or social media platform, rather, that was involved in, the riot and the attacks when, I mean, we know that Twitter was used. I still see tweets on Twitter that are bad. And so, yeah, it's a little weird that Parler got destroyed. Like, very specifically, Parler got destroyed. I think because they were the most high profile of these like alternate platforms, and so they just kind of like made an example, like the Death Star blowing up Alderaan.
I mean, it just shows on the influence. If you're guilty by association is so real now, especially with people like that.
But it's also kind of true. If you look around and the people on your left and on your right are insurrectionists, even if you're not, you got to wonder why you ended up in the middle of that particular crowd. Like, what brought you there along with those other people, and really investigate that. But I did want to say there's one thing I did notice right before we went on that I wanted to quickly bring up. Not a full story, but Chris Evans is in talks to rejoin the MCU as Captain America.
I saw that.
So the nice send-off they gave him and setting up the next Captain America to be Anthony Mackie and giving them their own show, so on and so forth, all gone.
I don't think people are going to care about that. I really don't.
I kind of care about that.
No, I meant in the sense like Chris Evans, woo, you think we're going to come back? I think they just want something new.
No, but I think it's because they need him. I think they realized that they killed off too many of their important people.
True. I mean, yeah, you make a good point with that too, but I don't know. We didn't ask for it. I mean, no offense, he did a great job. He deserves the recognition for it, and Chris Evans is a great actor, but like you said, it's Anthony Mackie's time, and
I would say, yeah,
stuff like that.
If for no other reason, because they just set it up perfectly. like they literally, the whole point is they ended their first phase or whatever the hell they're calling them.
Yeah.
They ended it with a bunch of storylines going forward. And I think part of it is they put a lot of emphasis on Spider-Man without realizing that they had to share Spider-Man.
Right.
And I don't think they realized what was going to happen to movies. They don't have a massive, they can't do the massive blockbuster thing where everyone goes to the theaters, because that builds hype. You know, when you see someone on the big screen like that, like that helps, I
Oh
think.
yeah.
I mean, you know, not to compare it to professional wrestling, which we should talk about because that's coming up next week. But but like when you see someone live and like a big pay-per-view event, they feel like a bigger deal than if you just saw them, you know, do well on Raw. And so now that everyone's watching from their phone, you know, that's not the right time, I guess, they're deciding for, you know, Anthony Mackie to take over that role, or for any of them to, you know, to base not, I keep singling him out. I'm sure it has nothing to do with him. But, you know, that's not the time to have your new cast take over. That's when you want to bring back the experienced draw of Captain America,
Get the pops.
you know, Steve Rogers. That's when you want that character back, because we need people to tune in on their iPhone, since they can't go to the big theater. They can't get that same kind of feeling of like this is big from their living room, you know. But
Yeah, I do.
yeah, that's all I have from Twitter today. Like I said, we wanted to keep this episode light and airy.
Well, it's gonna be. I think we got the accomplished done, and also then the new WandaVision comes out. Apparently, it's great.
Apparently, it's already come out. Yeah, it's
Apparently, it's
first three
amazing.
episodes are out.
If you want to see, I believe the best people who do consensus of movies and TVs, Rotten Tomatoes, their consensus on WandaVision. Part loving homage to TV history, part off killer mystery. WandaVision is a wonderfully weird and strikingly bold step into the small screen for the MCU. A perfect showcase for Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany.
Paul Bettany's a very famous actor too, so it's a big
He's a
get for them.
genuine actor too.
Yeah.
Like he's incredible. I think he's like, you know, obviously all of the MCU stuff,
Well, yeah, but
and
even before then.
you know, he was in Da Vinci Code and Solo,
Mhm.
Beautiful Mind. You married a Jennifer Connelly, who I saw in a movie
There you
a
go.
few days ago.
Circle it all around. Circle it all around. So before we log off and say our goodbyes, did you want to bring up? I guess it's next week, right? Or 2 weeks?
It's actually 2 weeks, so we'll
Yeah.
wait next week for it.
All right. So we do, since I kind of already spoiled it, I won't give too much away. I will say that we have something big in the works.
hmm
And we will give you the official announcement once we organize it next week. But from now, definitely follow us on Twitter at TweetCap. So the is just T, and then obviously TweetCap. So at TweetCap. We post obviously all of our episodes. We also post just random things. I saw Matt and I both went through, since we don't always see what the TweetCap does online, and we read everything that has happened in the last week.
Great
So
retweets in there.
a couple of original tweets too from the TweetCap. But anyway, definitely keep an eye out on that. Engage with us there. Again, just makes sense. It's all about Twitter, so you got to find us on Twitter. But if you want to just listen to us, you can do so pretty much everywhere now. We have Spotify, we have Apple, we have Amazon, we have Audible, and of course, we're on YouTube, although YouTube is usually a day late, or day or so late. By the weekend, it's on YouTube. On Fridays, of course, it's on everywhere else. So anything else you want to plug before we say goodbye, Matt?
Just continue to watch the TweetCap and continue to check out the Productive Conversations podcast on all podcasting platforms and YouTube. Don't forget to also like and subscribe and give us a review on both the TweetCap and Productive Conversations podcast.
Yes, and definitely listen to Productive Conversations. It's a different feel, but it's a good feel. Matt is a born interviewer, so the interviews are great. Hearing about people's lives is great. Sometimes, you know, it's all. What's great about it is it's ordinary people, for the most part, and even still, you learn so much just about humanity, by listening to the productive conversations, because it's real people talking about real stuff. So everyone can relate, everyone can understand, and obviously everyone can listen.
Thank
So
you
yep,
for that endorsement, Ryan. I
absolutely,
appreciate it. And you,
anytime.
like you said, it's like making celebrities out of the ordinary person, and that's what we do every Monday and Thursday on podcasting platforms and YouTube.
Yeah. All right. Well, then without further ado, this is Ryan signing off. Thank you, Matt, for another recap of the week in Twitter, and we'll talk to you next week.
So long, Ryan. Talk to you next week.
Later.